Manchester United have won back-to-back Premier League games for the first time since November, with the red-hot Rasmus Højlund finding the net once more. We'll be looking at his growth as United's number 9, alongside an ever-improving Alejandro Garnacho and Kobbie Mainoo, while looking at the news of Lisandro Martinez and the future of Old Trafford, on episode 187 of the Stretty Cast. Why, hello there. Kicking off this week's show with the unfortunate news that we are a man short today. Dale O'Donnell has unfortunately fallen ill, but he sends everybody his wishes and he does apologise. So, as challenging as it may be, I'm afraid that you're all going to have to stomach myself and Brian Murphy alone this week. Mr. Murphy, how is everybody in West Limerick this evening?
Doing absolutely fantastic, Sean. A slightly more positive red family down this side of the country again after a couple of good wins. So as
Sure.
I suppose, as you can say, as fickle as a fan base it is, it's very easy to put a smile back on our face. A couple of good results and a couple of half-decent performances, and the doom and gloom disappears again for a while.
Isn't that it? Isn't that it? And I suppose there's nowhere better to start today. It's a revelation that we have back-to-back Premier League wins from Manchester United. And that is the first in close to 3 months, which almost seems unthinkable. But it is the nature of the beast that we have been dealing with this campaign, really and truly. Now, Brian, when we're looking at it, Eric Ten Hag's side first made the trip to Molineux to face a Wolves side that was obviously bursting with confidence. At the time, they had 4 wins, 2 draws, and a solitary defeat in their previous 7 fixtures. I think they were only behind Liverpool in terms of form, and they had the home support there. Given the history between the sides, I think the 4-3 result was about as surprising an outcome as anyone could have expected. But then more importantly, it was the necessity to follow that performance and the win with another 3 points against West Ham on Sunday. And Ten Hag's men did so really and truly without ever having to get out of fourth gear in a 3-0 win, didn't they?
But did you know that the first game against Wolves is a funny fixture because there's kind of an ongoing joke that we play Wolves 7 times a season because we stereotypically draw them in a cup competition every season, and there are always these horrible 0-0, 1-0 games. Wolves predominantly play shit football. They drag us down to their level. It's not really an enjoyable watch. As you say, they were coming off a red hot form. We have been topsy-turvy for the best part of the season. So it was a game where you'd be nervous enough going into it, not knowing what to expect, wouldn't be overly confident. Wolves are definitely playing a lot better football at the moment than what they used to do. But again, we started off well. We got a good lead, playing all right. And as we have been doing typically all season, we shit the bed a small bit, made it a bit nervy for ourselves, and what a finish. That added a bit of a bounce to the step, and then we went into the West Ham game. And again, the West Ham game, we just, is it unfair to say we cruised through it within reason? I know West Ham had plenty of goals at us, but like one of the lads said, how are we 2 or 3 up? What's the difference? The difference is we took our chances, they didn't. Clear as that. I mean, we got a chance, we put them away. They got chances, they didn't. It's nice to be thinking that after 2 games in a row, we've 2 relatively convincing performances, bar a couple of blips along the way, and a bit of confidence back in the side again. I mean, confidence is a massive thing in football, mentally wise and dressing room wise. It lifts the spirit of players. I mean, if you're in a dressing room with lads and you're after losing 2 or 3 games, or you haven't won a game in 2, 3, 4 games, the heads are down and morale is low. I mean, that's just human nature. But no matter how bad your season's going, you get a couple of wins together, a bit of a bounce, a bit of a pep in the step. It's always a massive lift going into the next game. You're after coming off a good performance, you're after coming off a good goal, or you've scored that goal yourself, or you've set up something really well. It bodes well going forward. But I suppose, Sean, the biggest thing it proves to us. I know this is going to sound like such a shitty "I told you so" comment, but we spoke about this for so long, and it just comes home to roost. Isn't it funny when Eric Ten Hag finally gets his full squad back fit, that all of a sudden we don't look like a League Two shit side playing poor football with poor results. And all of a sudden, this magical wand, Harry Potter pulls a wand out of nowhere and just gives us a full squad. And we go back to back with 2 wins, loads of goals. A team that hasn't been scoring goals all season scores what? 7-2?
7-2, yeah.
Rasmus Højlund, 7-2. Rasmus Højlund scoring 4 in a row. Who would have thought that a team that finally got their key players back would actually be a better side? Heaven forbid.
I know, and it really typifies the monster of Manchester United and the nature of the media monster that follows them. You get your best players back, generally speaking, you get your best performances, and as you said, 7 goals scored, 6 points gained, climbing to sixth in the table. Now, it was an extremely good 4 days for the manager, Brian. It helped to rebuild some of the confidence, as you said, not only from the players, but in the bums in the seats as well, because it was badly, badly needed. One thing that I said a moment ago, and then you touched on as well, the victory over West Ham, it was really, really impressive. And it was one of those older displays that a team under Ferguson, for example, would go out and just provide a very, very routine performance in collecting 3 points. There's no frills about it. There was nothing spectacular. And you always felt that the side had another couple of gears that they could go if they needed to. To me, that was one of the biggest positives in it because I saw people quickly jumping to social media to lament the performance and saying, oh, well, why did West Ham have more opportunities? But ultimately, how many opportunities did they have on goal? United looked like that they had so much more in them. And I think the transition between defence to attack was incredibly impressive, especially with the speed that we had in attack.
Yeah, it was funny. Like at half time, I think even the pundits at half time were like, "Oh, United are ahead, but how?" Like, look at the stats. Stats, albeit Opta and all the stats in the world are very, very useful. Stats. There's no saying in golf, in the golf terms, if you par a hole and you're after taking two horrific shots, but you manage to pull par out of the bag, there's no photographs on the scorecard, and it's very similar with football. The statistics can show you one thing, but if you actually watch the game, the new more modern and younger fans will call it the eye test, which is a sickening term sometimes, but the eye test is very, very realistic. Yes, West Ham had more attempts on goal. We had more clear cut, important, close chances, and we took them. A side can have 20 shots on goal against you. 20 of those shots, out of the 20 of them, 18 can be fucking half chances outside the box, snapping at shots and ballooning them over the bar. You might only have four, but you have four clear cut chances and you bury them. The stats will show that you were, by the ways, hammered, but you weren't. So I think I think it's actually the fact that we're just not used to this season. It's been so long since we've had performance like that. We're not used to just going out and taking our chances, which we haven't been doing all season. We haven't been clinical. We haven't been scoring. We've one of the lowest scoring teams in the league. I think people are just surprised by the fact that went out, created a few chances, stuck them in the back of the net, didn't allow the other team to score. Hat tipped Andre Onana with a great save.
Yeah, very much so.
And yeah, no, 100%. I give him credit for that one. We kept a clean sheet. We took our chances when we got them. To be fair, I think there was maybe another one or two chances we should have, in inverted commas, put away. And it was nice to come off with a relatively convincing victory, albeit, as you said, lamented by many people saying, oh, we weren't that great. Well, we weren't that great, but we didn't need to be that great, which was the best thing about it, because as much as West Ham came at us, they had fuck all. They had nothing. Realistically speaking, they had one or two chances, but they had nothing major. So I'll take performances like that for the rest of the season. If we perform like that in games for the rest of the season, we'll have a good end of the season.
And realistically, at the end of a very, very impressive 4 days, we're now 6 points off Spurs in fifth place, eight behind Aston Villa in fourth, who we make the trip to face on Sunday at 4:30. It's something you're touching on with social media, and I touched on as well. But people are very quick to take their sticks out and to beat Eric Ten Hag with every passing moment. So certainly here, I feel it's equally important to praise the positive work that he has clearly implemented on the training ground. And central to so many of the feel good factors around the side at the moment has been the form of the attackers, as we said, Brian. Now, in the words of the great Sir Matt Busby, particularly as we all paid our respects towards the 66th anniversary of the horrific tragedy of Munich, if you are good enough, you are old enough. And for me, very much on that topic, newly turned 21-year-old Rasmus Højlund. You know I have waxed lyrical about him for quite some time. And when he netted his first Premier League goal against Aston Villa back in December, it was that 3-2 victory, that fantastic goal. It somewhat balanced the goal scoring that he obviously quickly recognised on the continent in the Champions League. Now, he's now scored in each of his last four Premier League appearances, and he also netted against Newport in the 4-2 FA Cup. He's on more than a little bit of a hot streak, Brian. He's got 10 goals, 2 assists in 28 appearances, and he's quickly cemented himself as a figure of a man that you really do go about building your attack around?
It's a funny one because, again, he came in as a young guy, realistically the main man straight away off the bat for big money. And I said it and I stressed it when we signed him first on this podcast that I wouldn't fancy being in his position, and he must have a massive pair of balls to take on that task at such a young age.
Mm.
It looks like he has a pair of balls like a Bengali tiger because he's inside in a team that up to now hasn't been performing or giving him supply. Many a joke made about the fact he's feeding off scraps and he's doing it by himself, but it comes home to roost again. Give him the fucking ball. Let him do his thing. Like, I mean, the last one, the goal he scored there the other day, where he took it on his weaker foot and just absolutely buried it to the bottom corner. Like, this is going to sound like such a sensational and way before time comment, but that's a Man United striker. That's
Hmm.
a striker that we've been missing. Someone that can do that. Someone that can just get a ball into feet, beat a man, and fucking stick it. Didn't have to be. It wasn't a tap in. It wasn't just another shitty, scuffy goal. That's the kind of striker you need. And at his age, to have the confidence to do that, I mean, you can see by him his attitude, his reaction to goals, his reaction the other day to not getting a pass where he started fucking whinging about it. Yes, you're dead right. That's the kind of fella I want to see at such a young age, to have that kind of belief in yourself and keep plugging away with no support. He's what would you call it? His competition for the place is on a 10-week hiatus because he's on the sick note again. As much as I would have liked us to bring in a striker in January to give him a break when it's needed, it's not there. He's in the position he's in. But if we can get that side with our key players staying fit, Ten Hag can work his magic on what he wants to do in the training ground, and we can actually finally get this fella with a bit of support. He'll bang in goals for fun. He really will. He's a powerhouse of a striker at such a young age. The pace he showed, was it his first goal for us? He scored that one in Europe where he just broke free and just went about 300 mile an hour, and
Yeah,
everybody, including myself,
against
was like,
Galatasaray, wasn't it?
against Gala, yeah. Everyone just went, Jesus Christ, I didn't know he was that fast. He's a lightning rod. He's a lovely, lovely young striker who can be molded into exactly the kind of striker we want over time if the rest of the team plays their part. Now, it's probably one of the failings, but again, he's a kid of Garnacho. Garnacho's an electric talent and a beautiful, beautiful young player. His decision making lets him down sometimes. It really does. Not always, he'll go so far and he'll take an extra touch that he probably should have put it in at that stage, and he'll get on a bit of a blind alley and he might lose it or he'll hop it off the defender. That's going to come with age and that's going to clear out of his game. And look, I remember watching Cristiano Ronaldo. I know it's a big comparison, but Cristiano Ronaldo was a kid when he came to us first. He was frustrating at times, making silly decisions and overplaying the ball or overrunning the ball. It's an age thing. That's going to work out of his game. But I'm sure we're going to talk a lot more about Garnacho in a minute, but he's a raw talent that once him and them boys start linking up, they're all young lads. Like, it's going to be it's exciting times for the future. It mightn't be exciting now. It might be hit and miss at times and people get frustrated with it, but you have to remember these boys are building something long term. It's not something that's going to happen today or tomorrow. It's a long term project. And I like what I'm seeing.
100%. It's a project, and it bodes back to something that we've discussed about on many podcasts, particularly when Sir Jim Radcliffe almost, when it was announced that this is the man who's coming in, this is the investment that we're looking at. And one of the things I said at the time, that it was imperative that behind the scenes we had a group of individuals that were all singing from the same hymn sheet. And when you've got so many young players coming forward, Rasmus Hoyland, Alejandro Garnacho, Kabi Meno, this is a group that you can build a team around that will last for the next decade. And it is nothing but good for now as well as the future. You drew on something a minute ago, and before we get on to Garnacho, I feel it's important to touch on this. You made reference to the competition to Rasmus Hoyland's place, and obviously Martial is sitting out with another sick note. Just how good of a character trait is that for a newly turned 21-year-old, when realistically he knows he's got his place in the starting 11 because there's not a whole lot of people there to take him out of it, and he still goes out there. He runs his heart out for 90 minutes or for however long he gets. He chases every ball. I look at him and he looks like an old soul in this young body. He's got so many traits of so many of the different number nines that we've tested over the last 10, 15 years. You can see a lot of Cavani in him in terms of the work rate and the tireless effort in getting around the field and not. He refuses to accept a dead ball. You see a lot of Ronaldo in him, and I use him because he was obviously here fairly recently in that petulant, was sort of throwing the arms around, shouting at Garnacho when he doesn't get in the ball, screaming for more. This is a guy that ultimately a few months ago we probably should have seen someone like Harry Kane coming alongside him. Someone that he could have learned alongside. But he has had to deal with the hand that he's been given. And while he did have a frustrating number of games in the Premier League where refereeing decisions somewhat went against him and whatnot, he's really, really taken it on board. And I for one, am utterly delighted with how he's going. But as you said, it's not just about him, and he can't do it all by himself. So you've got Alejandro Garnacho in the form of his senior Manchester United life, and a lot of that I think, Brian, comes down to the move to the right wing, because we've had that in the last month, and it's really ignited something in the Argentine. He's made the side of the field his own. He's played 5 consecutive 90 minutes, which is also a very, very big thing. That's 5 consecutive 90 minutes in the Premier League. He scored four. He's got an assist, and his brace against West Ham was truly sublime. But further to this, and I'm waxing lyrical about Rasmus and his character traits, but it shows a very, very strong character trait for Garnacho as well, because he appears to have taken the advice of his captain regarding passing the ball very much on board. You saw it after Newport that Bruno made reference to how we could have made the game a lot easier if a certain someone was passing the football. And he really went out then almost to make a point over the next two games. But further to this, and on another side, I know you're extra pleased that his presence on the right wing denies a certain Brazilian breathing space. But just how impressive has Garnacho been of late, particularly since he made that move to the right wing?
Remember, you asked me last week or possibly the week before about what would my starting 11 be and who'd play
Mm,
where, and I debated over it for a moment. And obviously, Garnacho started on the left hand side, and he was competition for Rashford, and the dynamic has changed on the side over Jadon Sancho departing and Anthony's form, etc., etc. And I'm glad to say that I went and stuck my head on the line and said I'd play Garnacho right, keep it Rashford on the left. It was before the Wolves game actually, and luckily
yeah.
enough, went out and Rashford scored straight away, which kind of silenced a few critics. And even though he was the Belfast boy on the beer, he went out and gave us a goal. But Garnacho, he's been really good on the right. But again, you touched on something regarding his attitude and listen to his captain. Go back to the summer when he didn't really feature too much in pre-season, and Bruno came out and said it was his attitude. He changed his attitude, and again, Bruno said passing wasn't right. Passing hasn't been great. He changed that. Does it also show a bit of credit due to the captain that he can take these situations and implement change? I mean, he's someone I've questioned myself. It's a total tangent. I've questioned Bruno as a captain myself, and he does get questioned quite a lot of what kind of captain he is. But I think it's credit due to him too that he can identify these issues and he's dealt with them. And he dealt with them publicly. He said these things in public. And Garnacho hasn't done a Sancho and given an A4 fucking sheet social media response. He's just kept the head down, shut up, got on with it, done the right thing, and proven how good he is. And it's lovely to see. But Garnacho is he's a lovely, lovely footballer.
Sancho took to social media to make his point. Garnacho is making his point with his feet on the field. And that is the response you want from any Manchester United player.
And that's exactly, and I don't care what anyone who's listened to this podcast says, that is exactly what Eric Ten Hag was trying to do and trying to ignite in Sancho. It was
Yep.
exactly, you could see it like reading a book. Jesus, it was so obvious. Ten Hag was just using one moment to try and spark a fire under a kid that he'd taken under his wing, given a chance, given a break, looked after his mental health, did everything for him to a guy who wasn't performing on the pitch for us, realistically speaking. And he tried to just give him that little boot up the hole, ignite the fire. Sancho dealt with it one way. Garnacho got the same kind of treatment from his captain and dealt with it such a different way. I mean, he's flourished. He's absolutely flourished. And considering our right wing has been a question mark over for quite some time now, if he can keep it going, I mean, I'm not going to say he's going to be absolutely phenomenal every game. It's not possible. And he's still a young lad. I mean, our expectations get very high very quickly, mostly due to Adnan Januzaj, the bastard. He destroyed me. But I try to hold back. I try to hold back as much as I can. But Januzaj always, he's the one who caused me to start questioning young lads before and not give him too much of a hype. But like it's very difficult not to get hyped up by Alejandro Garnacho. I mean, what I loved about Garnacho is that celebration,
Mm.
that one where he sat up on the boarding. Like you know he's got a pair of balls. You know he's got a personality. He's got charisma. He's got attitude, and he's got enough confidence in himself to go. I'm going to throw myself up on the board here. Fuck the lot of you. Angel Di Maria, make your comments. I'm here now. I mean, he's class. I'm so excited by him. And again, as many of us who are, I'm just praying that he doesn't do a Ronaldo and go away to Madrid in a couple of years, which is almost
I
scripted in the
know.
stars for. But
I
let's
know.
hope he doesn't. Let's hope he doesn't. But what
I
about that boy?
pray.
What about the boy beside him? What about the boy beside him? Robbie with a K.
It's impossible when you're outside the front and you have the statue of the Trinity and you see the three boys, the three baby Trinity. You know, it's absolutely fantastic. And with Cobby, he's another youngster who's quickly cementing his way into the hearts of supporters all around the globe, isn't he? I mean, he's already a mainstay in the heart of this team, in the heart of the midfield, and he's he's featured in 7 consecutive Premier League outings. He's already looking like a midfield maestro, isn't he? And what I thought was fantastic, and I loved it, absolutely loved it, because we're hearing so much about how much Manu is going to benefit playing alongside Casemiro in picking up all the wily information from it. How many times was he orchestrating the midfield and telling Casemiro where to go? He was telling Casemiro to calm down. He was telling Casemiro to hold on to the ball for a little bit longer. This is a child. He's an infant. He's a sprog. And he's in the middle of Old Trafford dictating a how many time European Cup winner. And additionally, like his injury time winner in Molyneux may very well be one of the greatest debut senior goals I've ever seen any young player take. I mean, this is a guy who, when you speak about a minute ago about getting a little bit excited about Adnan Januzaj back in the day, about all of these young players and try not to hype them up too much. I I I genuinely don't think you can hype him enough. We're at a time now in football in 2024, and the English national team are somewhat blessed with all of these young players that they have coming through. You look at Jude Bellingham, who's setting the world alight over in Madrid. You got another Stockport lad in Phil Foden for that lot, and he's gone out and, in credit to him, playing some fantastic football, and he's just after netting a hat trick. Kobe Mainu looks like he's 18 going on 30, and the way that he orchestrates, the way that he controls. I said it several podcasts ago, and I will stand by it, Brian. I think the greatest compliment you can pay to him is that he would not look out of place in a Pep Guardiola midfield, regardless of what team he was at, because he's so confident. And without doing anything completely over the top, he's not like Pogba looking for the Hollywood pass. He doesn't need to be the center of attention, shouting, screaming, flailing his arms around the place. He does all of the simple things right, and he always looks to make the simple pass and make the simple move. And it's very Carrick-esque, isn't it?
Robbie with a K is going to do the Adnan Januzaj to me because, as I said, I try not to hype up lads. I try not to get too invested in it.
Hype him.
You can stick right. You can stick a young lad. Let's take this back to basics. You can stick a kid on the wing. If he's fast and he can kick a ball around the place, he'll be all right. He'll do grand. You get away with it. Stick a kid of his age into the central cog of a football team, the stature and size of Manchester United, who are the most focused on team by the global media in the world, where you're under a microscope for every single blade of grass you step on or walk past. Central midfield is not a place to mess with. It's not a place you can hide. It's not a place you can fuck around. It's a place you have to excel. And at our club, you have to excel to a level above where you would have to excel acceptably anywhere else because you will be torn to shreds. And it happens. So many kids that come into a football side, especially ours, if you don't hit the ground running, you are cannon fodder. You're fucked. Kobe Manu, and I've made reference to this on Twitter numerous times, is the most mature footballer I've ever seen for his age. He is phenomenally mature. He, he just cruises around the pitch doing the dirty work. But at the same time, he's creating, he's, like you said, he's interacting with Casemiro, a footballer he probably grew up looking at, going, wow, he's one of the best players in the world. Now he's beside him telling him what to do. But it's not like he's telling him what to do in a cheeky way. It's his attitude and character that he has. He's so calm. His tackling is so precise. It's aggressive without being over the top. It's tackling exactly at the right time. His timing is impeccable. But the thing that really grabbed my attention with Kobe Manu as a child, well, not as a child, I'm 30, I'm 40 this year. The goal he scored last night, the injury time winner, is the stuff of wet dreams for any Red, for any Man United fan in the world. It's this one thing that you'd be lying in bed, and this is the one. It's fucking up against it. We're after going down. It's got to be equalised late in the game. There's probably a small chance left. Can we do it? It's the Fergie time of old. It's that, can they score? They always score. But it wasn't the case of he got on the end of a cross. He got a fucking ball at his feet. He nutmegged some fella. He took another touch, and without even looking, he just stuck it in the bottom corner. And then he did the thing that impressed me the most. If I had done that, and I am being 100% honest, and I swear this on my children and my wife's life, if I had done that, I would have been naked on that pitch. Every item of clothing I have, including my boots, would have been off, and I would have been doing laps of honour around the place going, look at me, I am fucking amazing, look what I've done.
How many
He
yellow
just did the
cards would you
whole,
have got for that?
numerous, and I'd take every one of them. He put the hands out and told everybody in the whole ground to calm down. He didn't hardly break a smile. He just jogged across as nonchalant as you want. For a kid of his age to do that on that stage for this club, it's ridiculous. It's borderline ludicrous. The the calmness he has inside him. He's come into the side, and it's funny that like he's gone from being this kid that people were talking about, going, "Oh, this Kobe Manu guy, oh yeah, he looks good and he's going to be decent and he's this and that and the other thing," and there's rumors about him coming into the first team and blah blah blah. He's overnight made himself one of the first names in the team sheet at his age, which is it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous what he's done this fast. The fact that like when I look at any game we have coming up, that he's one of the first players I want to see in the team after a handful of games or two handfuls of games is ridiculous. It's testament to the fact that he has an unbelievable talent. He's an unbelievably clever footballer. His style of play is something we've been missing so badly, and it does two more things for me. Number one, it stops us needing to go out and spend an absolute fortune on a centre midfielder, which is a pain in the hole because we keep doing it. We've done it in Casemiro. We spent a fortune on a guy coming towards the end of his career on a contract costing an absolute fortune. You bring financial fair play into it. You bring the finances of the club, the dynamic of the team, the age profile of the player you're bringing in. He's plugged a gap that's after saving this football club a massive amount of money. And referring back to Duncan Drasdow's conversation 2 pods ago, or a pod ago, or whatever it was, that the financial fair play situation isn't going to improve anytime soon. Well, he's after improving it dramatically himself because he's after saving us going out and doing it. And on the flip side, or not the flip side, on another tangent, he's also after proving something else to me and to everybody else. Now, I ask you, with all due respect, if you're listening to this and you see Manchester United selling a youth product or an academy player, and it annoys you to the stage where you get extremely angry about it and you start ranting and raving, going, this is a fucking disgrace. This is ridiculous. Why are we doing this? Why are we selling him? He's this, he's that. I've asked a few times in social media. I've had this conversation with you. I've had it with other people. Relax, lads, relax. There is obviously a clear plan. There has always been a clear plan for youth in this club. If you're good enough, you're old enough. We have implemented Garnacho, Menu. Look at the two boys we're talking about. They're the two starlets of the Premier League at the moment. If you're talking about kids in a football team, we've given them their chance. They're in a football team getting loads of minutes because they're good enough. Because they more than likely are almost guaranteed will make it at the level we want them to make it at. Yes, we've gotten rid of certain academy players, but go back through history. History doesn't lie. How many players have we ever sold that came through the academy that have gone on to have a career equal to or better than what they would have had if they had become a Manchester United first team player? And the pool of players is tiny. Gerard Piqué, we accepted and knew that he would go on to be a phenomenal defender. It was bad timing. He knew it. We knew it. It is what it is. We knew that was going to happen. Paul Pogba, a person I don't particularly like, was a gifted midfielder, had his head up his arse. Ferguson cut ties with him. He went on and had a great career until he didn't. Outside of that, there's very, very few players you can harangue Manchester United about or give out and say, you fucking shouldn't have sold him. Oh, he was too good to leave the club. People are going a bit over the top again this season because we're getting rid of a couple of lads. It's football. You bring the percentage of players you bring through a football club at academy level versus a percentage of players that will actually make it to your first team successfully and stay in it. It's a tiny pool of players. It's a tiny percentage. That's the way football is in any level. Go to a League Two team with an academy. They've got players that aren't obviously going to be Premier League quality. Are they going to be League Two quality? They'll get X amount of players off that academy. It works on that basis, and to be fair, the standards we have at United are that high that you have to be an exceptional talent to get into the first team and stay there. So if a player isn't good enough, or if a player isn't going to reach that standard, and we let them go, have trust in the fucking fact that our academy is world renowned for making some fantastic decisions, and relax. Don't freak out. If they're good enough, they'll get their chance, and we've proven that, and they have got their chance, and they've got there, and they're doing their thing. So take a deep breath. That's what I'm saying. Relax.
Here's Kobe Maino! Kobe Maino, the teenager, well, may have won the game with his first goal in the Premier League. Drama and yet more drama. This is quite sensational. Some goal. Fergie smiling, and rightly so. A throwback to yesteryear, and a teenager has scored the goal. What a moment for Manchester.
So we've spoken about the performances, we've spoken about the players, we've spoken about the positivity. And it was a side beginning to play with belief and understanding. I think it was evident that there was a side that knew what they were doing. Each player understood their roles in both games. And we've spoken previously about the importance of seeing several of these key players return. I don't think there's a whole lot of people who are going to argue about the importance of Lisandro Martinez, Brian. His calmness on the ball, his ability to dictate the build-up play and to lead the ball from defence to attack. In all honesty, they are among the very, very finest in Europe. And that was on show against both Wolves and West Ham. Obviously, it was very unfortunate what happened at the end of last season when he broke his metatarsal. We badly missed him. He came back at the start of the season, but ultimately what we got was a shadow of himself because he was still nursing that injury. And then he's missed several games again. He comes back, starts imposing his footprint on the style of play, and it's there. It's where everything flows better. We look better transitioning from defense to attack. Everything is just perfect. And then, following an awkward landing of Vladimir Kufal on his leg, our Argentine is now set to miss at least 7 games with a medial collateral ligament injury. Considering everything we've discussed about improvement, it's just about as huge a blow for him, for Ten Hag, for his teammates, and for everybody around the club. We usually get to questions at the end of the show, Brian. But right now, I feel that there's one that we need to pop in here, and it will fit perfectly in this particular line of conversation. It comes from Vincent Mellon on Twitter, and he's asked a great one relating to Martinez. And he says, who replaces him? We're looking at Maguire, Evans, Shaw. How do we progress the ball quickly without Martinez? I think it's a very important question considering the nature of the run-in at hand, particularly against Aston Villa. We saw Martinez lining out again alongside Harry Maguire against West Ham with Raphael Varane sitting on the bench. A lot of people questioned the decision, but Ten Hag obviously said that he's not a player who can feature in 3 games in 7 days. What are we looking at now with potentially 7-8 games without the Argentine? Who's going to slot in beside him? What do you expect to see?
Before we get on to who slots in beside him, I think you have to look at what he brought back to the side: a fully fit, well rehabilitated Lisandro Martinez is an absolutely phenomenal footballer.
Mm-hmm.
And it breaks my heart, the fact that what we saw of him when he came first. Remember when we go back to when he joined, and Jamie Carragher, oh, he's too small, he's a midget, he's this, he's that, and he made him eat his words, and he showed how good he was, and that was like he settled into the side so fast, and he was so good, and he was so electric and aggressive and positive in his movement, and positive in his ball carrying and his delivery forward. Then we saw, as you said, a shadow of him, which did him a massive injustice because people looked at him as like maybe he's not actually that good. It wasn't the fact he wasn't that good. He just hadn't been rehabilitated properly. He was rushed back, or he came back too early, or it just wasn't fixed. So I feel so sorry for the guy because he's a captain without being a captain. He's a captain in his play and his aggression and the way he behaves on the field. He is so key to this football team. It's criminal. And we saw it in a brief glimpse again before that big fucking oaf Kufal fell on top of him and done his knee. And it, it absolutely shattered me to see it because I know Lisandro Martinez wants to be there every minute of every game, having an effect on that side and working his bollocks off for the team. He gets it. And it's not very many people you can say, but he gets it. He gets what it's like to be a Manchester United player. He gets what the fans want. He gets what he needs to do. He gets it. He just gets it. To take that injury is an awful kick in the stones for him, and I'm gutted for him. I'm gutted for ourselves because, as you said, he came back into the side. His delivery, the ball forward, the pace at which we can change, something we've discussed so many times this season. Without him in the side, we're so slow in build up. And every football team these days in the modern world builds from the back. But when you've got a guy like Martinez building from the back, he's not doing a Maguire Lindelof sideways pass for fucking 10 minutes and then pass it out to the left or right back and move on. He's looking to see how can I pick a pass that'll split the midfield, either bypass the opposition or give it into feed to one of our lads and progress on quickly to turn defence into attack like that. He's a massive loss. I can't state that enough. He's a massive loss. And I'd expect a big change in how we play out from the back without him because we don't have the capabilities to do what he does. Um, Harry Maguire is the common sense answer. He's going to come in for him. You could have looked, if we had other options and if we had a squad with better depth in it, you could have looked at playing Luke Shaw there, and he'd be fantastic at it. He definitely would be a really good replacement for him. He'd slot in there very well. He'd offer you similar traits to what Martinez does in his vision going forward because he's good attacking wise. He's got good vision for passing and that. But you cannot sacrifice Luke Shaw from our left side right now. It's imperative that we don't. Getting Luke Shaw and Rashford together, you can't do it. You can't break it up because it doesn't work. Shaw and Rashford have an understanding over time, and they seem to just work well together. So
And
sit Maguire in there.
that build up that you're talking
Sorry.
about, that also affects Rasmus Højlund, because Højlund has really benefited from Shaw coming back with those overlapping runs and the crosses into the box as well. You've seen that, haven't you?
Yeah, and that'll show you how funny a game it is that losing Lisandro Martinez affects Rasmus Højlund. That's how important this guy is to this side. It's almost laughable that how important he is. Because if you break up that left wing of Shaw and Rashford, you change the dynamic of how it works going forward, which means Højlund is back to dealing with what he's been dealing with up to now, which hasn't been very foreboding for him supply-wise. Rashford plays his best football with Shaw. They seem to just understand each other and get each other. It's like they kind of have that little sixth sense of I know where he's going to be, I know where the ball wants to go. They work well together. Rashford should come into better form if Shaw stays on the left. Maguire coming in as that kind of Maguire plays that kind of quarterback role in American football for all the world. He kind of sits back and he pings these lovely diagonal balls out to Rashford and Garnacho and things. Grand. Okay, it's grand, it's nice, it's pleasing on the eye at times, but he doesn't bring the ball out like that kind of Rio Ferdinand trotting out through the midfield and picking a lovely pass forward or interlinking. That's what's catching us. That's what's catching us without Martinez. But look, let's hope it's the lesser scale of the injury time scale that we've been given, and he gets back as fast as possible. But it's been an awful season for him. It's been an awful fucking season for Martinez, and it's really hard to take for him, I'm sure, mentally wise, for a guy who wants to be there every second.
And with that period, with the recuperation period, we're hoping it's going to be as successful as it possibly can. He's set to miss Aston Villa, obviously, coming up, followed by Luton, then a visit of Fulham to Old Trafford, the FA Cup tie, an away trip to Man City, the home tie against Everton, and then against Sheffield United, with plenty of optimism seemingly circulating that he is potentially available after the international break in March, and that would be a trip to Brentford. One thing that I want to touch on as well, Brian, the question is a great one, obviously, that's been asked, because the natural thing that people are going to look at is they're going to say, well, look, Raphael Varane has established himself back in the squad, got over whatever has occurred behind the scenes with Eric Ten Hag, and we're looking at who is replacing Lisandro Martinez. But I wonder if Harry Maguire is now in the side regardless of this injury, and are we potentially looking at between Raphael Varane and Johnny Evans? It's not too long ago that Harry Maguire and Johnny Evans started solidifying the most unlikely of centre-back partnership for Manchester United in 2024. But with the best respect of both of them, they didn't do a whole pile wrong. And when you look at our defenders that have the capability of being able to somewhat replicate the ball-carrying abilities, the distribution, and the confidence on the football, Johnny Evans may very, very well have a shout against Aston Villa at the weekend.
Varane's a curious one because, granted, he had this issue, or this supposed issue, or this cloudy discussion about himself and Ten Hag having problems, but to watch Varane, and someone passed this comment on social media during the week, and it just struck home with me. He runs like he has a limp, is the comment that was made. Now, I've noticed by him, he hasn't looked as mobile as he once did. Obviously, age plays a part in that, of course, but he's been making a couple of silly mistakes, decision-wise, passing-wise. He's, he's not quite the Varane that came to us and took the selfie on the field, and we all got such a buzz off of. I don't think his performances have been enough to state he is far superior than anybody else in the side in the centre back department. I don't think he's at that kind of form at the moment. So there's definitely question marks. The fact that we're even discussing Johnny Evans as an option is again borderline ludicrous, but it's a fair comment. It's madness. But what has Johnny Evans done wrong since he came back into the side? Not a whole pile. Not a whole pile. I'm just listening to you listing out the games there, and there isn't too many easy games there that you'd say, oh, we're grand missing Martinez for that. I mean, Luton are fucking on fire. I don't know where that came out of, but Luton are phenomenal. Villa really tough side. City away, disaster situation for any fucking Man United team going over there. It's always a tough one. The FA Cup tie should be relatively okay, but again, it's the FA Cup. It's not an easy run of games by any stretch of the imagination, and the fact that we know that we're not going to be going into those run of games with the type of football we've just seen in 2 back-to-back wins, and knowing that it changes the dynamic and the style of play we're going to play is a bit of a sickener. But again, I just hope Martinez can get back as quick as possible and he comes back at his best again, because we're going to need him for the rest of the season. If we're to pull anything out of the season and the season transpires to be any kind of a success based on the first half of what we had, he's pivotal to it. So, but yeah, I don't know. I think Harry Maguire has he's done himself no injustice at any stage this season. I think he's quietened an awful lot of critics. The noise around Harry Maguire has disappeared within reason. The noise that was there about him get him out of the club. And look, I was a big detractor towards the end of last season against him. I thought it was time for him to go, and I made comment a few times, even for himself personally, mental health wise, the amount of shit he to read on social media and the abuse he was getting probably needed pastures new. But Harry put the head down and kept going again. And it's another dig at Sancho. Jaden, this is what you needed to do. Shut the fucking mouth and drive on. Now, I won't keep mentioning him forever, but he's just a sticking point that annoys me, because Sancho was such a high profile signing for such money, and we did so much for him. You'd think he could see and have the maturity to say, right, that's that right hand side. At the time that this happened, that right hand side was up for grabs. And very quickly afterwards, it was up for grabs again. It was there for him. It was there for him to take and make his own. So it's something's going to annoy me for the rest of the season, but it is what it is.
I want to shift now ever so slightly as well, Brian, and move away from the nature of play on the hallowed surface of Old Trafford and focus on the sacred grass and the seats within. Do you see what I'm after doing there? This is, of course, related to the news that was posted by James Ducker yesterday regarding the very real possibility that Mr. Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos would consider building a state-of-the-art stadium on the grounds of Old Trafford, one that could potentially exceed 90,000 capacity and challenge the National Stadium as the Wembley of the North. Now, Brian, between you and I, we ran several polls to determine the fans' feelings here, because there was a suggestion that the supporters would not be totally against a brand new stadium if it could facilitate this stature that could rival Wembley. Now, according to about 60% of maybe about 3,000 people that returned votes, there's a desire to renovate Old Trafford as opposed to knocking it down. And it's something that we've often discussed privately. Dale himself has discussed it with us. But as we are here now on the 7th of February 2024 in this topsy-turvy conversation, where do you stand on the matter right now? Is it a case of let us revolutionise a 100-plus year building, or let's go to a state-of-the-art stadium?
I'm going to get splinters on my arse from this one, from sitting on the fence. I was asked yesterday after running that poll, where do I stand on it? And I suppose I'd been known in my views as a traditionalist, and I pride myself on being a traditionalist when it comes to football. I don't want Old Trafford to be torn down. I really don't, from the bottom of my heart. If there was a way to renovate Old Trafford as it is now, without moving where it is, modernise it, improve it, increase it, change the acoustics, but maintain the ground that we currently have and bring it into the more modern era, that would be my preference 100%. If that is not possible, and if the reports come back from the planning and designing people and whatever else, the people that are way more educated than I am on this topic and subject, if we have to build a new ground, I would adamantly say it has to be on the same ground. So there's these schematics that they can build a ground beside it. I would want it to be in the same exact area, 100%. The only thing I will say on it, and I know people can be sensational when they make comments about things, and people can go over the top on that. We're not talking about a football ground that's a dilapidated corpse. I mean, people are quick to say that Old Trafford is an absolute shithole, that it's back in the dark ages. Is it fuck? Have you ever been to this ground? Have you been to Old Trafford? Have you been to Manchester? I've been going to Old Trafford since I was a child. It's still, it's not too long ago, Old Trafford was one of the finest football stadiums in England. Granted, times change and people get more modernised, and we see the likes of Spurs and Arsenal them building these new grounds, and they're lovely and everything. I've been to Spurs away. Is it a lovely ground? Yes. Would I want to go to that ground every week as my home ground? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's not a ground that interests me to be my home ground. So my biggest issue is if we do choose to go down the route of building a new stadium as opposed to fixing what we have, and everyone keeps using this term, renovating Old Trafford is triggers broom. It seems to be the buzzword at the moment, triggers broom, and we all get the reference from Only Fools and Horses that it's triggers broom has 44 handles and 44 heads. If we have to go down the route of building a new ground, I would be vehemently against building one of these bowl toilet bedpan style football stadiums. I don't like them. I don't think they work. I don't think they're what traditional English football is about. I buy into the whole thing about the optics of it and the visuals and all this, but I think we're better than that. This might be an awful arrogant thing to say. I think we're better than that. I think we're better than a prototype footprint of a ground that is evident in 50 other cities across Europe. Is that really what we're about? We're not. We're different. We're Manchester United. We always say we're not arrogant, just better. Well, fucking prove that then. Build or design us a football stadium if we have to change that puts two fingers up to Wembley and goes, fuck Wembley at the north. We're not. Build the Old Trafford at the south. Well, why would we try to follow you? No, we'll lead the way. You copy us if you want to copy us, but give us something to be proud of. Don't give us something that you'll see if you go to the big cities across Europe and it's the exact same football ground. Nah, bollocks to it. But again, preferably, do up what we have, build onto it, make it bigger, make it better. I don't care, but I'd love to see us stay where we are.
Yeah, and I'd second that. It's not something that I need anybody to try to convince me about. I know ultimately we don't really have any say in this naturally, but there's a certain something about history, you know? We are a club that prides ourselves on history. All you have to do is look at the proud history we hold with our academy products being featured in every single squad. It's a stadium that we spent 114 years at. Now, I know the point you're making, and it's a perfectly valid point for individuals that are touching upon how we need to follow these lads in London with regards to these would-be Coliseum type stadiums. But ultimately, I've been to these stadiums just like you've been to them. And while they look a little bit wowed from the outside and a little bit wowed from the inside, they lack any sort of a soul. They're empty, they're cold, and it's very, very hard to develop any sort of a relationship with the players on the field. And ultimately, football is about the players and the fans embracing each other and having a relationship that works both ways. The performances of the players will ultimately affect the supporters. And the atmosphere that can be generated in the seats inside an Old Trafford has on more than one occasion been able to influence the decision of players on the field. We're talking about a stadium that, yes, it is over 100 years old. And I know they're drawing toward fine little details, such as wiring. There is so much history, tradition inside in this stadium that, for whatever it's worth, I would have them build back upon what we have and just try to bring it forward and revolutionize it and bring it into this modern world that we have. Ultimately, as well, when it comes down to money, according to that report, Brian, you could be talking upwards of 2 billion, 3 billion to be able to build a new stadium, whereas the renovation works of Old Trafford were in around 700 or 800 million. So if you can have that situation where you can spend less in bringing the stadium back up to where it needs to be, surely that's going to benefit the people that are trying to put money in their pockets as well, no?
100%, 100%. Again, it's all ifs, buts, and maybes. But if financially it's doable to improve what we have at that level of expenditure, it's a no-brainer for me. One of the topics on this discussion of the stadium that irks me a small bit, they keep saying, or people keep saying, build 100,000 seater stadium and this, that, and the other thing. Yeah, okay, and the atmosphere will be amazing. I'm calling bullshit
Mm-hmm.
for a simple reason. We've a 74,000 seater stadium. The atmosphere isn't electric or amazing. What's an extra 20,000 seats going to change? Because let's be honest, let's check out the demographic of who's going to be in those 20,000 seats. It's going to be 20,000 people that may or may not go more than once, twice, 3 times a season. Will be season ticket holders? Maybe, maybe not. We have a massive season ticket holder base at the moment. We have a massive football ground, and we know that the acoustics don't work very well. But the atmosphere isn't there with the fan base we have currently going to the ground. And we have tried and tried and tried to fix it. We've had safe standing sections, we've had singing sections, we have TRA working their bollocks off for years trying to get it going. There's only so much people can do unless people buy into the fact that we need a better atmosphere in the ground. Now, speaking about TRA, the clubs seem to have a bee in their bonnet with TRA, where they're biting back and they're reducing allocations and they're not willing to engage with them on ideas and processes to improve the atmosphere. I mean, if you want to improve the atmosphere in the ground, and you've got a group of guys and a massive amount of membership, which are all season ticket holders by and large. There's loads of members part of TRA, of course, but this season, because of United's T's and C's and the stipulations they've put on TRA, it's become pretty much a season ticket holder situation. These are people that go mostly every week, that want to sing their heart out and are involved for a reason. They've chosen to become involved in TRA because they want a better atmosphere. And you're not taking the advice from them when that's their core purpose. It baffles me. So saying let's stick on another 26,000 seats onto the stadium and make it a $100,000 seater, although we need that because ticket demand is another mind-blowing fact. Ticket demand is absolutely insane at the moment, and we've been shit all season. It doesn't make sense at all. I've never seen tickets so in demand. So yes, do we need more seats to house more people? Absolutely. Is that going to change the atmosphere? Absolutely not. More people doesn't mean more atmosphere. It just means more effort to try and get these people off their arse to sing. So don't just automatically assume that building a 100,000 seater stadium becomes a bowl of noise. You'll end up with fucking Spurs and they're getting out your iPhone light show to try and get this nightclub atmosphere going. It's so plastic, for want of a better word. It's just trying to create something because they can't get it going. So yeah, there's a load of factors to think about and consider on the stadium situation. As you said, we have absolutely no control or say involved in it. I just hope that whatever does happen, high up or low down, we end up with an end product, preferably where we are, that we can be proud of, future generations can be proud of, the history remains, and we can try and fix the atmosphere there, not in this new bowl. We regret to interrupt this broadcast, but if you can place your cuppa down beside you without dropping the digestive biscuits you're dipping into it, and do me a favour. The biggest help that you, as a listener, can give us is subscribing to the podcast. Helps us more than you'll know. It only takes a few seconds, a bit like myself, so hit that button and let's get back to the episode.
Touching now on what is, of course, my favourite part of the show, the valuable input from our ever-growing listeners and a variety of questions that touch on each and every topic that we could imagine. Now, I say it every week, and I will continue to say it until I'm blue in the face. We really, really do thank you all from the bottom of our hearts for the support. This is a show that we're trying to build for you. As we always say, it's a podcast by fans, for the fans, and we urge you to continue with this tremendous pouring in of questions, and we're going to try to get as many of them as we can. Our first is from a man going by nothing other than the name Adam on Twitter. And he says, "And do ye ever see United being as dominant and successful in future years as they have been in the past? And if so, how long does it take for the first prestigious major honour to come? And how long realistically can the club sustain success again?" Do I think that United can ever be as dominant and successful in future years? Of course they can. Of course they can. I'm not entirely sure if they can propel that sort of level of dominance that we had 20 years ago, given the nature of competition that's there. But Manchester United is a perennial powerhouse, as we all know. We're approaching a situation where we're looking at a number of people coming in, and as I constantly say, singing from the same hymn sheet. We have a fulcrum and a crux of young players that myself and Brian have been speaking about for the last nearly an hour. And as long as we can build around a dynamic that the youth is the core and keep our young, talented players together and start adding little bits and pieces every single year with carefully scouted transfers, then realistically, I feel the first prestigious major honour can come in the next 3 to 4 years. I don't think it's too unrealistic to say that. What do you think, Brian?
I think, yes, we can get back to being at the top of 100%, but can I ever see us going back to how as successful we've been in the past for that long at a time? No, I don't, because it's purely down to the fact managers don't last that long anymore. And as we've seen, a top manager goes, things change very quickly. Things can go downhill very, very quickly. I'm hoping amongst hope that when Jurgen Klopp decides to leave, if he definitely does go in the summer, that they fall apart and that their best team ever, best team in the world, best goalkeeper in the world, best centre half in the world, who won one Premier League title behind closed doors, asterisks, that they fall apart and that they just don't be the team they were, because it changes that quickly in football. Look at Chelsea. Chelsea were top side, changing managers all the time. It worked for a while. It didn't work. So things go so rapidly different in football these days. Although I can see us getting back to the top 100%, and I'm going to echo what you said on how long it takes for a prestigious honour, I don't see it being that far away, which is possibly a cheeky thing to say considering we've been horrendously awful for most of the season. We're not a billion miles away from it. It's a change of ethos at the club, a change of standards, a change of setup, the right signings, and the right manager falling into place, and all of a sudden things can work very quickly. Now, look at the likes of Villa. Manager came in, got the players playing for him, right players are playing for him. All of a sudden they're a decent side. They're not like a lower half side, they're a decent side playing good football, doing well. We're at a level where our baseline of our squad, we have a great baseline. We have a great squad to work with. We have a great core of players to work with. We need a few additions, 100%. But we're not that far away, even though we're not performing like a side that's going to win the league this season by any stretch of the imagination. We're not that far away. So how long for a prestigious major honour? 2 to 5 at the very, very outset, if we get things right and we build appropriately for the future, and we work with that base of young lads we have, and we play the game properly, and we let them develop. It could come sooner. Now, I could be talking about my hoop, and in 10 years' time, we'll be standing here. I'll still be bald. You might be with me in the bald situation, and we'll be going, where did that come out of the last decade of nothing? But I don't see it happening. I see us on a trajectory of upwardness by buying into Sir Jim's illustrious and fantastic words, the beautiful presence of Ineos at the club, which has sounded and looked so good so far. I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic for the future, and I think we have a great foundation to build on instantly. But again, it's a project. It's a long-term project for, if you want sustained success, you don't bring a Jose Mourinho in and try win the league the first season and fuck the whole lot up within 3 years. You build slowly, calculated, and when you get there, you stay there for a while. You don't just hit up there straight away and gone. You want to get up back to the top and stay there for a prolonged season. So, yeah, a long-winded answer, but that's where I'm looking at. Again, another question. Next up, it comes from Damien Young on Facebook, and I'm going to put this one to you, Sean. He says, Christian Eriksen is perhaps heading for the exit. Do we let him go or keep hold of him until the end of the season? And I'll push another point with you on that question. It was revealed today or yesterday that Christian Eriksen was the subject of an approach from Galatasaray in the January transfer window, which didn't materialise and was rejected, I believe, by the club. I could be wrong on that one, but it didn't go anywhere. So I suppose Damien's question is he heading for the exit? Do we let him go? Do we keep hold of him till the end of the season? We've kept hold of him till the end of the season, but in the summer, what do you see happening with Christian Eriksen?
I think it's a very relevant thing. Obviously, it's relevant because what's happening, and well noted that Galatasaray tried to lure him there. It also follows on with something we spoke about in a couple of podcasts ago when we were looking at how Manchester United should be moving in the future. We need to take on this authoritarian approach whereby we don't hold on to players over legacy. That when a player reaches a certain point of their career and they're no longer able to hack it in the Premier League, then it is time that we look to start offloading them. Christian Eriksen is, as I've said previously, a fantastic servant to the game of football. I think he arrived at Manchester United at a brilliant time, and he really stole a lot of people's hearts based on obviously the turmoil that he went through on a personal level, but the performances that he had at Brentford prior to coming to us, and then what he launched at when he came to Old Trafford, they were fantastic. It was a long time since we had that level of control and that level of confidence from a playmaking central midfielder who really could pull strings. Now, unfortunately, this year we've seen him fall off in terms of pace, in terms of his overall ability to be able to track back and move forward. The transitioning of the game has gone so fast, and every year in the Premier League it gets quicker and quicker and quicker. And ultimately, Father Time is catching up on him. So for me, I would hold on to him now just as a squad option over this run of games that we have because he's going to be a valuable player to have to be able to utilize in games where we're playing against really low blocks and we need someone to come on, have something slightly different to be able to break that low block. But certainly come the summertime, I'd be looking at finding a suitable club for him and let him see out the remainder of his years at a slightly lesser pace than the Premier League, Brian.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we spoke about it recently, saying that his time is coming to an end, and it's always sad to see a player with the capabilities of Christian Eriksen, the attacking ingenuity and the ideas and the way he approaches attacking football and the creativity he has is obviously a massive asset. But his defensive abilities have gone to God. His legs are running out, and as you said, Father Time, he waits for nobody. So he's been a great footballer throughout his career. His time at the top level is sadly coming to an end, and he'll go off into the sunset having had a decent time at Manchester United. He won't have embarrassed himself by any means. He's been quite successful at United. He's played some good football at times. Just time is coming to an end, and it's time for him to go off into the sunset and get a nice cushy contract with somewhere with a bit of sunshine, maybe.
Power to him for it. Now, Brian, finally, one more. We're going to do one more. I have to. And it's from Shane Farrelly on Twitter. He's asking a question that I've seen come up an awful lot. And he's asking, would you take Ivan Toney at Manchester United? And additionally, could this potentially block Rasmus Højlund's development? And what type of players should we be going for next season to support him? So he's looking in three ways. So short and sweet. Would you take Ivan Toney at Manchester United? Yes or no?
Before he did a podcast with Diary of a CEO, Sean, what's his name, Bartlett. Before that, yes, I had waxed lyrical about Ivan Toney as a footballer and a striker. Was adamant I wanted him at United. The fact that I know he's a Liverpool fan, he put his stall out for Arsenal. He's been pretty much prostituting himself to any top club that will take him since then. His behaviour, while he's still at a club, which I find a little bit disrespectful, to be honest, his behaviour has been poor. He's come off a ban. The club have supported him. They've come back and made him captain inexplicably, and he's still putting a big neon sign over his head saying, "Someone come buy me, give me loads of money." Not the type of character I think we want. Football wise, ability, yes. Character wise, no thanks. Forget about it. Not a chance.
I'm going to hit the second part of it. Do I think it could potentially block Rasmus Højlund's development? If that question was asked to me specifically about Ivan Toney 4 months ago, then I would say no, that he'd have the capabilities to learn alongside a veteran. And will say, I'm not saying Ivan Toney is necessarily the definition of a Premier League veteran, but in that particular ilk, he's an older player who's played in the league for longer and it can only aid in the development. However, now, given what Rasmus Højlund has battled through, I think Rasmus Højlund is, like, to coin a phrase I used earlier on about Kobbie Mainoo, I think Rasmus Højlund is 21 going on 30. I think he's got an old head on those very young shoulders. And I do think lumping a big transfer fee at someone like Ivan Toney would block his development. But Brian, he needs support. So the third part of the question, what type of player should we be going for next season to support Rasmus Højlund? Now, this is a tricky one.
It's beyond tricky because you can look at it from many different variations of viewpoints. You can go back to the Fergie era where we played 4-4-2. We had four phenomenal strikers on the books. York, Cole, Solskjaer, Sheringham, and we made use of all of them. Then again, some of them were happy to play the part they had and the role they had in the side. Modern football, you don't have that many strikers in the books. Fair enough. You look at Hyland's development, what he's brought to the side the last couple of weeks, specifically how he's playing up to now. You'd have been gone if for this season, especially an older striker to come in like a Falcao or a Cavani, just someone come in and give him a break. Now you're at a point where you look and go, okay, how many games a season do we have? Upwards of 60 odd. You need someone to come in or to challenge him, and competition breeds excellence. So you bring in a striker of, let's call it a similar level or similar standard of football. Good striker, well able to score goals, chomping at the bit, wanting to play. Let them fight it out. Let them fight it out amongst them. That's what I'm going to say. Let two good strikers fight it out amongst them. Let's not go for the aging profile that I once thought was the right move. Let's have a pair of balls and let's have room for two. Of course, you also have the side of Rasmus Højlund picks up an injury. You need the guy who comes in to be perfectly capable of leading the line instead of him. If we're saying Rasmus Højlund is our number 9 and our number 1 striker going forward for long term, so I'd almost be cheeky enough to ask for 2 strikers. I'd almost say we needed to get someone of his ilk coming in, and maybe even on top of that, an aging striker as a third choice backup in case shit hits the pot. And like we had this season, a massive injury crisis, we've an option to come in as well. So someone that might be happy enough to come in and play 15 games, 20 games a season, a couple of sub appearances here and there, as well as bringing a striker in that wants to take Hyland's place off him and let the two of them battle it out.
Wouldn't it be something? And I know it's fantasy, but wouldn't it be something if we could lure a certain Irishman to come in, Mr.
And
Ferguson?
I knew Evan Ferguson was written over your eyes before you even commented it.
Oh, I had to. Would it be something if we could bring him in, and you could have those two boys betting alongside each other, testing each other in training? But you know what would really make it exciting, Brian, is you could necessarily look towards the growth of the re-emergence of a 4-4-2. Evan Ferguson, Rasmus Højlund leading the line at Old Trafford in front of the Stretford end. That, to me now, that is Ryder Rover stuff right there. And even though it's highly unlikely we're going to go for it, it would be fantastic to see
It's the second podcast in a row that you've given me a brief glimmer of hope of ever seeing
it.
4-4-2 again.
And I will not
Stop doing this. Stop doing this to me. Someone called me. It was Dale called me the Sean Dyche of the podcast last week, and it's been mentioned to me by numerous people, and I'll take it. I'm an adamant believer. 4-4-2 was the prime formation of football that gave the best football to watch of all time. I know Pep has his style, and the Pep Guardiola style came in, and this fella changed this, and this fella wants to play that. What I wouldn't give. Can I even go into my dreamland? What I wouldn't give to see the likes of Evan Ferguson and Rasmus Højlund up front, 2 young lads, fresh, fit, able, ready to go, doing exactly what Rasmus Højlund is doing right now, working their bollocks off for 90 minutes every single game for the crest. And Højlund strikes me as a player that's playing for that crest. As much as he's playing for the name on the back of the shirt, he's playing for what's on the front of it. And you can see it in spades in him. He's given every bit of effort. So wouldn't that be just absolutely fantasy land? But it's not likely, unfortunately. But I'd still like to bring in a striker. Maybe not Evan Ferguson. Maybe he wants to come in and just be the main man. But wouldn't it be nice for Evan Ferguson to come into United and say, right, fuck you, Rasmus, this is my spot. And Rasmus to look at him and go, well, you cheeky little Irish fucker. Let's see. And let them go off each other. Imagine the effort, the desire, and the ability on show them when they're pushing each other. This is the thing you need. And we've always seen in football, competition is the best thing for any footballer. Højlund, although you made reference to it earlier, his competitive partner, Mr. Martial, is now out of the game, hasn't dropped his standards, even though he's guaranteed to start, which is a rarity in the mindset of young lads. It's testament to the kid that he's got that much desire in him. But wouldn't it be great to see that? Wouldn't it be great to see 2 fellas going hammer and tongs in training, hammer and tongs pushing each other? And every time one comes off and one comes off the bench as a sub, he's trying his best to shove that other fella out of position. That would be phenomenal to see. So It'll be
can
interesting.
dream.
It's a great question. It's a fantastic question because what type of player should we go for next season to support him as a striker has so many different ways of looking at it and so many different ideals and possible answers. The other tangent on it, which is something we spoke about numerous times, there's not that many strikers in football because it's dropped off from 4-4-2, where clubs did have 2, 3, 4 strikers on the books. And because of the natural progression of football into this 4-3-2-1, 4-3-3s, whatever variations you want to look at, football teams don't have that many strikers on the books anymore, which means when you go looking for a striker, there's not that many out there like there used to be in the days of old. So it's a very curious topic that's going to be very interesting to see what direction we go in. And I'm intrigued to see what the outcome is.
And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, your time with Brian and Sean has come to an end for this week. Brian, if people want to continue talking to you, how can they get in touch with you?
You can find me on Twitter on @daytrippingred. And if you don't subscribe to the podcast, I'll call around to your house and replace all of your brand name cereal with own brand.
Oh dear God, that's about as bad as you've ever hit anyone with, Brian.
It's the most vicious threat I can give someone.
Ooh, if you want to get in touch with me, you can do so on Twitter as well at Sean Connolly85. Be sure and follow us on Twitter at StrettyCast, and you can also follow us at Stretty News. And wherever you get your podcast, be sure and subscribe to the StrettyCast to get notified about any new episodes that are launching, as well as catching up on an archive of all of the episodes that we have run previously.
One little shout out before we finish. Just Dale O'Donnell, hope you're in better shape next week and you come back and join us for a chat. And I hope that in the week you've had off, you've been going to elocution lessons and your pronunciation of not only footballers but the new owners of Manchester United, who are not some sort of Indian tribe from North America in the Inuits or the Inuases of the world, become Ineos, and Kylian Mbappé becomes Kylian Mbappé. Get better soon and join us next week.